This is my CPSC 597 demonstration focusing on my software application called ReMoodWork, designed for employees struggling with their mental health during remote work. And in this demonstration, I will cover the 7 user stories that were already discussed in my report. The first user story I would like to address is to create a user registration. So the first user story is going to be as a user, I want to register my account so that I can input my credential information and set my job classification status types between an employee and employer before logging into the ReMoodWork site. So what I am going to do is I'm going to click on this register button. I'm going to type in a new username to fit as an employee or yes, an employee. My password is going to be test123 exclamation mark. And same thing, test123 exclamation mark. Then my full name is going to be the same one as the username. Um, and my job classification choice would either be classified as an employee or an employer, but we're going to go with an employee as the first choice. We sign up and the user has already been created. So what they're going to do is they're going to go into the login page and they need to fulfill with their user credentials and their password to fulfill into going into the ReMoodWorks website. And the second user story is going to be that as a user, I want to log in with my credentials so that I can access my private homepage in ReMoodWork and safely log out of its system. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go to this login button page and I can go in and create a username that we've created before with the username and password, and it's already been authenticated and logged into the ReMoodWork website. And you see here that this user does not have any pulse survey records yet. So if we go to the surveys on this button page, we click on the surveys and we click on the visit your pulse survey records. We already know that this user has not created any pulse survey records before. So in this next user story, um, we want to say that as an employee, I want to create a new pulse survey record so that I can keep track of the daily lifestyle activities of my remote work conditions and notify my employers every day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my first pulse survey record right here. I'm going to create a new activity name, and it's going to be this. And my activity type, you can classify this as a work task, take a break, or day off vacation, but we are going to identify this as a work task. And how many hours that were spent on this activity, it was a 15. And the rating, it's going to be rated as an emoji, so I'm going to collect the happy emoji and say And the work-related stress issues can be classified as a yes or no, but we're going to go with no. And we're going to submit the pulse survey records. And our pulse survey has already been created. And now we want to log out of ReMoodWork and be identified as an employer of this company. So the next user story requires a user to be registered as an employer, but I've already created this before, so we're going to log in again as another or as a different user. So I'm going to go with, let's say, Kevin McDaniel, and I'm going to type my password as test 123 exclamation mark, and note that you must create a new employer first before getting started with registering an employee at this company. So the next user story is to add to their new current employer working at Google, where this other user story states that as an employer, I want to add an employee from my company name so that I can access their list of survey records and employees that have created already. So what we are going to do here is we're going to go in this page that states your employees at Google. We're going to click Peter Parker. We want to decide if we want to add this person or not. If we select no, then the employers will go back to their home page. But if they click on this employee name again and select yes, then they will be successfully added and check their pulse survey records to monitor their health behavior of the remote work environment. And we want to go ahead and also create a new food record for employers to create a new meal item based on a restaurant or a recipe. So the next user story is going to be create a food item, whereas an employer, I want to add a food item so that I can include meals made for an employee to select or made for the employee to select either from a restaurant name or food recipe of their choice. So we're going to go to this food records button. We're going to click on it and we're going to say create a food item. So we click on the create a food item and we're going to choose a name that is best for us, which is smoked salmon. And say I love this food. And the price range we want to add is 15. Note that for when you want to create a food item based on the restaurant name, you need to include a restaurant name and a price range first before creating a food item. And if you're creating this as a recipe, you don't need to include the price and restaurant name, just for your information. So the cuisine that you want to create is that I want to create is American, and the food item that I want to list out is a restaurant. And if it's a restaurant name, we can say Dr. Doc Seafood. And what are the calories used for this food item? It's going to be 150, and which dietary restrictions, gluten free. The allergy is going to be shellfish, and the images. I've already provided an image here for my ReMoodWork directory in my test for located in the work records directory. I have it right here that contains the food meal images test that you can also upload into. And let's say example salmon, we want to choose, and we create our first food item that has been created by an employer. So what we are going to do is we can also create another food meal item for that are made for recipes only. And the images part, you can optionally leave that there if you don't want to include any uploading images. So if you submit that, what's it going to be? Oh, I forgot to include as a recipe right here. If I want to include that, my images will say image not found. So now we've already created our two food items that an employer made already. And so we're gonna log out of the page and we're gonna log in again as an employee. And we got our pulse survey records, but we also need to create our meal planning assessment. So we go to the visit your assessment survey records, and we say that you haven't created any meal plan assessment yet. Note that you can only create it once, not multiple times. So in this user story, we say that as an employee, I want to add a meal plan so that I can input my health and dietary contents before selecting food items based on my personal information of my data. So what I am going to do here is I'm going to create my meal planning assessment record. I'm going to enter this, going to enter that, going to enter that, going to enter this, and my budget's going to be 20. and gonna identify it as an American Mexican cuisine. I submit my meal planning assessment record, and there it is. I get to have my meal planning assessment record. And the meal choices that are recommended for me are two choices that I can go with. So the final user story that I'm going to say is is this. As an employee, I want to order a food item from the website so that I can place my meal from a restaurant or recipe based on my meal planning assessment profile. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this salmon meal item. And I'm going to say that whether or not if I want to select this meal item or not. And if I select no, I go back to the meal planning assessment page. But if I select again the second time, and this time clicked as a yes, then my meal has successfully been placed. And and so we already have our meal being selected, stating that this meal is already selected in this page. And we can do the same thing with this one too. We can select and say, yes, I want to order this meal. And I'm going to go back to the home page, and I can see that I have my list of pulse survey records and my meal plan assessment. And that is my demonstration on my CPSC 597 on my software application called ReMoodWork. Thanks for listening.